Let's finish off this example here by showing you how to do the hanging cables that I showed you earlier. So this guy right here is pretty much done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide that for now. I'm going to bring back the hanging cables example, which is this one right here. Let me go to a front view and you can see what we have here. Basically these cables that kind of drape down, and they don't have anything on the ends, which makes it really easy to go ahead and place this with something. So for example, there could be a wall on this end, there could be a power box, or maybe a big industrial light on this end, or it could be any number of things. So just use your imagination. But this default asset here can be used as a modular asset to just add it to an environment scene over and over again, and just add more detail to your environment. So to create this, we're going to use a pretty similar technique to what we used before. So let me go ahead and hide this now, and I'm going to come over here to create curve, draw by CVs. I'm just going to start to create a curve here and have this thing kind of drape down like this. So kind of decide how you want this thing to kind of flow or drape down. Make it look as natural as possible, obviously. Something like that looks pretty decent. This has a good number of points here. So what I can do to make this look a little bit more natural is I could use the tweak tool and I could start to move some of these points around. And by doing this, the curve will look more organic. What you want to do now is also go to the top view, and you can see from the top view the curve looks completely flat. You could come in here and use the randomized deformer that we used before. In this case, I don't want to do that. I want to make this a more subtle sort of curve or whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and opt to control this manually. So I'm going to go with something like this. So a very subtle deviations in the curve. If I go to my camera view, it looks something like this. I don't want to kind of overblow it and put too much noise in the curve. All right. So once we've got that down, let's go ahead and let's create a polygon mesh disk over here. So basically, same thing as before, pretty much. I'm going to reduce the subdivisions there. Now, in this case, these hanging cables in the environment that I created, they're actually on the ceiling of the warehouse. So the player never actually looks at this close up. There's no reason to do 6 subdivisions because of that reason. So what you might want to do here, this is what I actually did. I made this have about 3 sides, so basically a triangle like this, okay? And let me show you. You'll see why in a moment. I'm going to drop that inner radius. Let me drop the outer radius over here. Let me also move this, and I'm going to snap it to the beginning of the curve over here. I'm going to rotate it so the polys are facing down the curve. Something like this looks pretty good. I'm going to take that inside loop of edges right there and collapse that. I'm going to take these polys here, and I'm going to rotate them this way, okay? I want the flat side, this edge, this flat edge on the top, I want it to point up. Okay, I want it to be above so the player never sees that. What the player is going to see is these edges down here. Okay, so it's going to create an illusion that the cable has volume to it. So the cable looks like it's round, like a cable will look like, but it's just an optical illusion. So we're going to try to use just 3 sides to create a cable that to the player's mind will look like a full round cable that's made of, of a lot more sides. Let me see, in terms of the thickness of the cables, let me go ahead and I'm going to scale this down locally, something like this. I think that'll look just fine. Now that I have these polys selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude along curve, select this curve. Okay. The cable looks kind of thick at the moment. Let's go ahead and add some subdivisions per knot. 1 subdivision per knot seems like it's quite a bit. That's a lot. I don't even think I want to do that. Let me do 0 subdivisions. 0 subdivisions doesn't look too bad. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. The cable's a little bit too thick right now. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin it out quite a bit. And here's a really cool trick that you can use in SoftyMod to do this easily. Okay. Make sure your object is selected. Come over here to the Explorer and hit the E key on the keyboard. This will focus in on the object that you have selected. Okay. Open up the Polygon Mesh node, and you're going to see the Extrude Up right here. The Extrude Up is the one that we just used to extrude along the curve. So what I can do is I can right-click on the Extrude Up and hit Disable from here. Okay. It's going to basically disable that. And what I can do now is I can go to these polys over here, and I can scale them down to make this a little bit thinner. And then what I can do is I can come back to the extrude op and I can enable from here, and it basically thins out the curve for me without destroying any of the history that I used here while I was modeling. So it looks thinner. I like it a lot better. You can see here that it's a very low res piece of geometry. I'm going to open up my my camera visibility options and go to stats and turn on my selection info and scene info so that I could see the triangle count in my scene. You could see over here in the top left, Softimage will show you the triangles of the selected object and then total of everything in your scene. So right now this object is only 63 triangles, which isn't too bad. That's very, very optimized. Okay? And since these hanging cables are something that's seen from far away, it's on the ceiling of a warehouse, and the ceiling is a good 30-40 feet high, so the player's never really going to see these cables close up. So there's no reason to waste a lot of geometry. If you wanted to, though, you could add a little bit more geometry to this if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I'll leave that up to you. Another key thing to note is that since the player is going to be looking at this from below, whenever they do happen to glance up at this, you know, usually they're going to be busy blowing stuff up or killing bad guys or whatever it is. But if they ever do decide to look up and look at these cables, they're going to look at it from this point of view here. So what they're going to see is, they're going to see this polygon and that polygon, which is going to give the illusion of a round object. But if you look at this from the top, it's completely flat on the top, which obviously looks wrong, but since the player never sees this from the top, it doesn't matter. So we save ourselves some geometry. So it's a cool little kind of professional trick of the trade you can use there to really optimize this and get away with something like this. Okay, so now that that's done, what I can do is I can just copy this over. So let me show you how cool this is. I'm going to take the curve as well as the piece of geometry that I made, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I've got myself another copy, and the copy is going to be completely identical. So make sure that you activate global mode over here in the MCP and turn on COG, and then just kind of rotate this about 180 degrees this way. Let me go to the top view over here, and I'm going to place it about right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the curve, and I'm going to use my tweak tool. And because I haven't frozen modeling on this, what I can do is I could just use the tweak tool to kind of put this stuff together and make this new curve a little bit different. So you don't want to waste time creating a new curve, then creating a disk mesh, fixing up the disk mesh and trying to, you know what I mean, just sit there and waste time doing this over again. If it took us 10 minutes to create this, why would we waste another 10 minutes to create this? Let's just do it in about 10 seconds by duplicating it over. And what you can do here is, let me take that curve, let me go into the front view, and I'm going to add some variations. So maybe this cable over here on this side, maybe this one kind of hangs down like this, you know? So it looks a little bit different. It's a cable that looks similar, but its profile is a little bit different, and that'll make it look a lot more natural. See that? And then what you could do is take this guy again, duplicate him, move him over here like this. Alright, so you got this hanging cable over here, and then I can go to, say, like a top view, start to add some variation to this. So you could literally make, 3 of these cables that kind of are grouped up together but are slightly different, or you can create 10 of these cables. Really, it's whatever you want. Let me go to the front view. This cable's a little bit high, so maybe I'll make this one straight down a little bit, so something like that. Maybe this one will go like this. So I think you get the overall idea here of what it is that we're doing. We're basically recycling our work, adding some variation so we can speed up the production process here. Speed's very important, especially when you have deadlines. And you can create these hanging cables and just keep adding variation to it and make these cables look different. And then what you could do is you could take these cables and you can, say for example, duplicate these, bring them over like this, maybe rotate these around. Now just because we rotated them, they're going to look different than the other ones. So you can have 2 sets of the same cables, and the player would never know that these cables are all exactly the same. You can't tell. Even I find it hard to tell, and I'm the one that actually, did this. So very cool, very simple techniques for getting that kind of stuff done. Right, so that's going to do it for this example. I'm going to end this here, and we're going to move on to another example next and show you some different techniques that you can use to create different types of assets.